right now on 10 News.
We are a Jewish nation that will stand tall. We will not let anyone or anything take us down.
A synagogue in Poway stands strong after a gunman opened fire on the last day of Passover.
Look at me like that.
One worshiper killed, 3 others injured.
Jumping in pain because he was getting shot. 2 of his fingers are like off.
Tonight, those 3 survivors share their stories for the first time.
Live from the Scripps Studios, this is 10 News.
And we begin in Poway tonight. The community there banding together after a gunman opened fire at Chabad of Poway Synagogue. Good evening, I'm Vanessa Van Hefty. Here's the latest on what we know tonight. 1 woman was killed, 3 others, including Chabad's rabbi and a little girl, were wounded. The 3 survivors are now out of the hospital. We'll hear their stories tonight and from the heroes who saved lives. Meantime, the suspected gunman has been booked into jail. We have team coverage tonight, beginning with 10 News reporter Laura Acevedo. She joins us live from a vigil for those victims. Laura, you talked with the rabbi earlier today.
Vanessa, yeah, and a lot of raw emotion from that rabbi. He's actually set to speak to this crowd here at a vigil in just a few moments. He called yesterday's acts terrorism and said miraculously the shooter's rifle jammed before anyone else was hurt. Standing with his arm in a sling and his hands wrapped in gauze.
I walk 2-3 footsteps when I hear a loud bang.
Rabbi Goldstein recounted the moments he came face to face with the 19-year-old who entered the Chabad of Poway and opened fire.
A young man standing with a rifle, pointing right at me.
Goldstein says he had just stepped away from the synagogue's lobby to freshen up before the service. Before that, stopping to say hello to Lori Kay, the only fatal victim in the shooting.
And I met my dear friend, Lori Kay, a blessed memory.
The rabbi says the shooter was wearing sunglasses and didn't say a word.
More shots came running right at me, and I lifted up my hands. I lost my index finger on this hand.
Quickly taking action, Goldstein moved to the banquet hall full of children.
My granddaughter, 4.5 years old, sees her grandpa with a bleeding hand, and she sees me screaming and shouting, "Get out, get out!" She didn't deserve to see her grandfather like this.
He says the congregation had active shooter training about 6 months ago when the Pittsburgh shooting happened. Training, he says, saved countless lives.
Tremendously, because they evacuated so well. We had so many exit doors that it was so effective that people really, they ducked down and they crawled out to safe areas.
After the shooter left the scene, the rabbi still took the time to preach to his congregation.
Terrorism like this will not take us down.
And Rabbi Goldstein did announce Lori Kay's funeral is set for tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. He said it will be the hardest day of his career. Reporting live in Poway, Laura Acevedo, 10 News.
And an impressive showing there tonight. Laura, thank you. A day after the Poway Synagogue shooting, security was ramped up at religious venues all around San Diego. The Lawrence Family Jewish Community Center and UTC hosted the annual Holocaust Remembrance Day today. 10 News reporter Rena Nakano spoke to members who say anti-Semitism is not a thing of the past.
We will never forget.
Yom HaShoah, a moment of reflection and remembrance of the Holocaust. Hundreds of San Diegans honor the survivors. Survivors like A25893.
People that were sent to factories to work.
That's what Rose Schindler was to the Nazis. A slave laborer, a serial number, not a 14-year-old Jewish girl from Czechoslovakia.
I was skin and bone. I could barely stand on my feet.
4 months in Auschwitz concentration camp. She saw people die every day, but Schindler somehow survived.
It's a miracle.
After the war, she moved to England, then to the U.S., thinking that anti-Semitism was gone, but it wasn't.
I felt awful. How could this happen?
Her thoughts after hearing that a gunman went on a shooting spree in a Poway synagogue Saturday morning.
I thought I was back in Europe in 1939.
It took her right back to the moment she was staring into the rifle.
Innocent people praying to God, and some animal comes in and does this.
A rabbi shot in the hand, a young girl and her uncle injured by shrapnel, and 60-year-old Lori Gilbert Kay died shielding the rabbi.
What she did is who she was. She thought of others first.
Gilbert Kay's friend Rick Barton chairs the local Anti-Defamation League. Sadly, he says this tragedy isn't a rarity.
We need to combat that kind of hatred through education, through appeals to people's goodwill.
Goodwill.
It's right over here.
That Schindler's siblings couldn't carry out.
My youngest brother, Meyer Bear Schwartz.
Because hatred killed them in Auschwitz. But she lived, and so did the rest of the worshippers at the Poway Synagogue. They now join the club of strong souls who share the title of survivor.
We have to hope for better things. Remember one thing, never give up.
Rena Nakano, 10 News.
And tonight we are hearing from that little girl hit with bullet fragments and from her uncle who was shot while risking his own life to save the dozens of children who had just been left outside to play.
And these are big fragments.
Her small body riddled with shrapnel.
Down here.
9-year-old Noya Dahan described the moments she witnessed her rabbi drenched in blood.
Jumping in pain because he was getting shot. Like, 2 of his fingers are like off. They're off. And he's like gushing blood and stuff.
Most of the children were on the playground when the gunfire started, but she was inside, feet from the killer.
Like, I felt like I was in a movie or in a dream. It was bleeding a lot, and I had to go to the ambulance. How do you say that?
The only child hurt, others were spared, likely because of this man.
And I tell him all the kids run.
Olman Peretz was shot in the leg while saving the children. He says he never felt the bullet, but remembers locking eyes with the killer.
He's looking at me like that. And I saw him in the gun, in the big gun. He's looking at me. He's look like that, and they shoot one after one. I take the girl fast.
Both of those survivors recovering tonight at home. Meantime, members of the Poway community are calling for an end to violence against houses of worship all around the country. This comes one day after the deadly synagogue shooting. 10 News reporter Nate Holmes was there as neighbors and worshipers showed their support for the victims.
A growing memorial of flowers and cards sit across from the Chabad of Poway. Many still shocked over the shooting that happened just 24 hours ago.
My stomach just dropped because I have so many friends and neighbors that go to this synagogue, and they're some of the most wonderful people I've ever met.
Rebecca Esteve says she was in the area moments after shots were fired.
I saw the first 2 cruisers respond, so I actually saw people coming out of the Chabad synagogue.
A worshiper who was inside of the synagogue at the time, still visibly shaken up and in disbelief.
Doesn't matter color, doesn't matter if you are Jews or Christian or Muslim, you are a human being. Choose a life.
Father Alexander Fedorov with the Christian Orthodox Church, which is located right next door to the synagogue, says that they were in service at the time of the shooting, and members from the synagogue went inside of their church just moments after the gunman opened fire.
We were all traumatized. You know, it could have been us.
Father Fedorov says services stopped briefly, but they continued because they said at the moment all they could do was pray.
You know, the church doesn't exist because of hate. The same with the synagogue. You know, God is love.
Services will continue for the Orthodox Church, but members are still on the edge.
You know, there was a time where you could go to church for safety. Now the church is not safe. It's just not safe. You know, it used to be where people would go there to be free, but now you're afraid to go and pray.
Nate Holmes, 10 News.
2 men inside that sanctuary rushed right into the line of fire, preventing the shooter from killing more people. 10 News reporter Jennifer Dela Cruz shares the stories of the heroes who stopped the gunman in his tracks.
Among the crowded congregation sat 2 men who turned into heroes. Off-duty Border Patrol agent Jonathan Morales and Army veteran Oscar Stewart. Rabbi Goldstein says he asked Morales to always bring his gun.
Say, Jonathan, you work for the Border Patrol. Please arm yourself when you are here. We never know when we'll need it.
When shots rang out, both men were ready.
He jumped up in pursuit. Oscar Stewart, a former soldier, jumped into action. he tried to tackle down the gunman.
Stewart going right for the shooter.
I heard gunshots. I saw everybody running, so I ran to the lobby where the guy was with the gun. I called him and I said, "I'm going to kill you." And he dropped his weapon and he ran. And I chased him out into the street, into his car. I punched his car.
Morales then opening fire to make sure the shooter couldn't get away.
And Jonathan pursued him and was able to discharge his weapon and got the car a few times.
Stewart rushing back inside to help the victims.
I saw the rabbi, he was bleeding from his hands. I immediately went to the lady on the floor and started doing CPR on her. And she didn't make it. You know, they say I'm a hero. I don't think I'm a hero. I just did what I did.
Jennifer Dela Cruz, 10 News.
Incredible stories that we're hearing tonight. And we are also learning more about the alleged gunman, the 19-year-old John T. Ernest. 10 News reporter Cassie Carlisle live at his family's church. Cassie, we have learned that his father was an elder there.
Exactly right. And we tried to speak with the pastor here at the church, but he did not want to speak with us before the service that started at 6 p.m. But what we are learning is how an overachieving student and pianist was filled with so much hate.
John T. Ernest practiced piano for hours, dedicating more than half his life to the art. On a Facebook page recognizing the top 30 seniors in Poway Unified School District, this post reveres him as a dedicated student, homeschooled before going to Mount Carmel High School, earning a 4.31 GPA and taking 11 advanced placement classes. All of this begging the question, what happened to inspire such hate? One clue, this photo taken from a message board site used by hate groups. The post just 20 minutes before the shooting, saying he's been on the site for a year and a half and thanking the group for everything he's learned there, with a link to his manifesto. The interview-style document explains how he believes, quote, every Jew is responsible for the meticulously planned genocide of the European race, end quote. He also said he was inspired by the Christchurch shooting in New Zealand and hopes to inspire others. He said he wasn't taught this ideology from his family, saying, quote, I had to learn what they should have taught me from the beginning. After the shooting Saturday, police say he called 911 and told them where to find him.
Suspect pulled over, jumped out of his car with his hands up, and was immediately taken into custody by the San Diego Police Department. As the officer was placing this 19-year-old male into custody, he clearly saw a rifle sitting on the front passenger's seat.
At his family home, his mother and father showed up, visibly upset, putting her hand over her mouth, motioning for her son to stay back, and his dad wrapping her under his arm. The family being ushered to speak with investigators.
And of course, here the church denouncing what he did, saying that that is not what they preach. Reporting live in Escondido, Cassie Carlisle, 10 News.
Cassie, thank you. And you can head to 10news.com for the very latest updates on this story. We are on top of it. You will also find the full interview with Chabad of Poway's rabbi. And we have breaking news with the shooting of 7 people in Baltimore. Police are saying it was at a neighborhood cookout. Law enforcement tonight also still looking for a missing boy in San Bernardino. Police now arresting his mother and his aunt.
Showers and thunderstorms just hours away. I'm tracking rain for your morning commute coming up in your 7-day forecast.